burst of dopamine into the brain is more than the receptor sites have to handle it. So then the over amount of dopamine is not being absorbed by those receptors. The receptors close down. It's too much. They become desensitized. It's like living with a spouse that always yells at you. They got to yell a little louder to get your attention the next time. You need a little bit more now to turn it on the next time. So now when the person combines a clear intention of their future and they open their heart and they feel the emotion of that future, their body is objective. It's the unconscious mind. It doesn't know the difference between the actual experience in their life that's creating the emotion and the emotion that they're fabricating by thought alone. In that moment, their body is believing it's in that future, in the present moment. You neurochemically condition your mind and body to begin to work as one, and the redundancy of the act over and over again conditions the body to know how to do it better than the mind. Now it's innate in you. It's second nature. It's easy. It's familiar. It's who you are. And so I think we start as philosophers. We initiate, we become initiates, and then we master it. Knowledge, experience, wisdom, mind, body, soul. Learning it with your head, applying it with your hands, knowing it by heart. Thinking to doing to being. And so I think to answer that kind of question or that comment is that most practical question is, how am I going to apply this to my life? Now, when you learn new things, you make new connections in your brain. That's what learning is. But if you can't remember what you learned, then you haven't made any new connections that are sustainable or maintainable. So the more the person can repeat what they've learned, the more they're installing the neurological hardware in their brain in preparation for the experience. And so now they're priming their brain for the act, right? And when the experience happens, experience then enriches the circuitry in your brain. That's what experience does. So now you're laying down even more neurological tracks, but the payoff is the chemical called the emotion. And the moment you feel unlimited, the moment you feel grateful, the moment you feel abundant, now you're teaching your body chemically to understand what your mind is intellectually understood. So knowledge is for the mind and experience is for the body. And now we're embodying the truth of that philosophy. And we're literally signaling new genes in new ways and changing our future, or changing our genetic future. And if you've done it once, then person says, I want to be healed, I want to be healthy, I want to be wealthy. And they imagine it and they come back and it's not there. And when they see it, it's not there. The thought of their future creates the emotion of lack or separation. And if thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, now you have mind and body in opposition. So then, if you think about something like appreciation or thankfulness or gratitude, when you are receiving something, when you just receive something, when something is happening to you in the moment, or something just happened to you that you enjoy, or you're surprised about, or is pleasing to you, you feel this emotion of gratitude. So gratitude becomes the signature, the emotional signature that it's already happened. Gratitude is the ultimate state of receiving. And the stronger the emotion they feel, the more altered they feel inside of them, the more they pay attention to the picture in their mind. And we could say then that they're beginning to remember their future. And biologically, it's the same as remembering your past. So if you keep practicing opening your heart and you keep combining it with a clear intention, then the thought and the feeling changes your state of being. You'll feel like your future has already happened. Now, what's the significance of that? If you feel like your future has already happened, you stop looking for it. You're no longer waiting and wondering when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. You feel like it's already happened. So now you take your foot off the gas, and you're no longer trying to predict or control or expect how it's going to happen. So we've isolated the process of being able to make your brain work better. And I talked to the brain scientists a few times, and I said, tell me what percentage of people that immerse themselves in an event for 7 days, what percentage of those people do their brains get better? They said 100%, 100%. So we know that you can make your brain work better if you learn that formula. Okay, so now we have a clear intention, but that's only one element. There is another element that is the handmaiden to that, and that is an elevated emotion. Now, elevated emotion, I'm talking about, so many people feel with every single body part except their heart. I mean, that's just kind of a weird thing that we do as human beings. Well, you protect that, it's you being vulnerable in the jungle means you're
you're more likely to be taken advantage of, and you get bruised or injured in your life. You kind of learn from that, and you protect it, right? So in the creative process, the heart is the creative center. We have compelling data to show that once you open that heart of yours and it starts beating in a rhythm and a coherence, it actually informs the brain. Your body is so objective that when you feel the emotion before the experience, it doesn't know the difference between the real life experience that's creating that emotion and the emotion that you're fabricating by thought alone. The body's actually believing it's living in a new environment, a new condition. It turns out it requires, if you're looking at a secret sauce, we've kind of whittled it down to a formula. And it requires a clear intention, and that is a vision of what you want to have happen, and that is selecting a new possibility, an unknown, that you would like to experience. Okay, so what does that require? That requires your brain being really coherent. It's safe to create. It actually tells the brain to get creative, and brainwaves change. And so when you combine that coherent heart and elevated emotion, and you start feeling the emotions before the experience, the heart actually produces an external magnetic field. Well, now you got a Wi-Fi signal, and that field could actually resonate with a coherent brain, the intent. And the thought is the electrical charge that sends the signal out. It's the directive. And the elevated emotion, that feeling is a magnetic charge. And we've got enough information to show that the heart's the magnet. So you're going to draw the experience to you with your heart. So when there's a kind of match in frequency between some potential in the quantum field and what you would like to experience, and you keep tuning in to that potential, and you're actually creating from the field instead of from matter, the rules change. Now you don't have to go anywhere to get what you want. Somehow the experience finds you, and it comes in unexpected and surprising ways to prove to you. So most people, though, when you do that, when you decide to really take a look, it's like lighting a match in a dark place. So you feel uncomfortable. So it's easier to turn on your TV. It's easier to play with your cell phone, to distract yourself from those feelings. Well, when you understand that change really requires becoming uncomfortable to a certain degree, and that's normal, that you're leaving the known and you're stepping into the unknown, then it begs the question, what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? Because your attention on those thoughts begins to reorganize circuitry, remold the brain. So some people would rather cling to the familiar than take a chance in possibility. So for most people then, they say, well, I don't really see how my thoughts have anything to do with my destiny. Well, that's because 95% of those thoughts are subconscious programs, right? So you're not even conscious that you think those thoughts. So the first step to change is starting to think about what you've been thinking about and change it. And then when you begin to observe those thoughts, you're no longer the program, you're the consciousness observing. It's a scientific fact that it's the environment that signals the gene, okay? The end product from an experience in the environment is an emotion. So when you begin to embrace an elevated emotion, you're beginning to signal the gene ahead of the environment. What's the importance of that? Well, genes make proteins, and proteins are responsible for the structure and the function of your body. And the expression of proteins is the expression of life. So by you creating an elevated emotion and teaching your body what that future will feel like before it's made manifest, your body's starting to live in that future reality in the present moment. Now, if you're living with emptiness, you're living with lack, you're living with pain, most people have been conditioned that something out there has to take away this emptiness or feeling inside of them. But if you believe that you're creating your life, and you're living by lack, well, lack isn't going to create abundance, right? So then it makes sense then that you don't really actually create wealth. You generate wealth. You generate abundance. So the moment you start teaching your body emotionally what that future is going to feel like before it's made manifest, well, your body is the unconscious mind, believes it's living in that future in the present moment. Now, so the only place then reasonably where the unknown exists is the sweet spot of the generous present moment. That is when the body and mind are free from those conditions. So along with those emotions that influence the same thoughts, people start becoming more judgmental. They start becoming more impatient. They start becoming more entitled. They start getting more afraid, more anxious, more depressed. And now the body is literally being depleted. So now the body, which has been conditioned emotionally to be the mind, wants to return back to its familiar territory, to the known. So the body starts influencing the mind. And it says, come on, this is a good time to judge. Come on, this is a good time to suffer. It's your ex's fault. It's the government's fault. It's it's the weather, the news, whatever it is. And if we accept, believe, and surrender to that thought without analyzing it, and in emergency, you tap all of the body's resources for some threat, whether it's real or imagined. And so then when you're releasing all of these chemicals, we are literally drawing the body's life force and turning it into chemistry. And so for the short term, that's cool. But the arousal that's created from those stress hormones is a rush of energy. And so then people use the problems and the conditions in their life to reaffirm their conditioning or their addiction to that emotion. And in a sense, they become addicted to the life they don't even like. And this is why change is so hard. So then when a person makes up their mind to change and they say, okay, I'm not going to say I can't, I'm not going to judge another person, I'm not going to blame, I'm not going to complain, I'm not going to make excuses, I'm not going to be a victim, I'm not going to talk trash about anybody, I'm just going to stop. Well, that works out really well for the first couple hours.